Welcome back to a little bit of cheese, maybe sad cheese, maybe not cheese, but we are back with our Monday NFL reactions. It is the end of the Packers 2024 season as they lost to Philly yesterday 20-10. This is a very interesting game. There are a lot of takes on Twitter. Packers fans are kind of all over the board on this thing. So I'm going to give the floor to Sam right away. I want to hear your raw reactions. I haven't talked to you about this game at all yet. I didn't watch it with you. I haven't seen you since. So everything that I'm going to hear from you is also the first time that I'm hearing this. But I have a lot of takes, a lot of questions, and I think a couple of mysterious answers about this team that we're going to dive into this episode. But the end of the season starts today. And Sam, you could take it off.
Well, it's good to be back on a little bit of cheese as a generic Wisconsin sports fan, as the
Yeah.
YouTube audience sees. What does that mean? That means we made the playoffs and did nothing with it.
Hmm.
So that is your generic Wisconsin sports fan for the day. It feels like my projected headline from last week rings a little bit truer than my adjustment. Heading into the offseason, we might have a little bit more questions than answers. It's tough to not feel like we took a step back. Last year, we had a younger team, dominated on the road, made the second round of the playoffs, played a good game against 49ers team who had a chance to win the Super Bowl. And this year, with a very similar team, with added Josh Jacobs, added Xavier McKinney, offensive line got better. Jordan Love got a year older. The whole same receiving core was there until Sunday, yesterday, we didn't have too many injuries throughout the year. It's just tough to look at this season and feel like we did anything other than take a step back. That being said, I'm going to rehash what I said a couple weeks ago. There's levels to this. We are not on the level of a Super Bowl team. We talked about it all year long, and it came down for a playoff game, and we found out what we knew. We were a good but not great team, and we ran into a Philly team that does operate on all sides of the ball. That fumbling the opening kickoff after the helmet to helmet contact that we recovered. I don't know. You hate to
Hmm.
get too dicey about it because the ball was moving a little bit, but I think there's just enough helmet to helmet, just enough he had the ball on his back to get worked up a little bit. But like we needed a hot start on this game. I love some of the energy that Jaden Reed was trying to bring to the table.
Hmm.
I think we'll talk a little bit about Jaden Reed and what he was trying to do more. But defense did their best. And like I said, we didn't learn anything new from this game. We were never a Super Bowl team to begin with, and Philly just does have that ceiling that the Packers do not have. And Jordan Love's three interceptions, man, those risky throws aren't going to work against good teams. He was making them all year long, and he hit on a few of them. And when you're in a playoff setting against a team with a dang good secondary, they're not going to work, and they didn't.
Yeah, there are lots to digest there. We'll start at the top with your take that Green Bay took a step back. And yes, digesting everything the way that it felt, I think so. But then I saw a couple of takes on Twitter, and I think this is a good way to look at this season. Last year, Green Bay was 9-8. They went into Dallas, which we kind of knew, and it was evident after the fact that Dallas was not ready for that game at all. Dallas was not ready to go in and win a playoff game. They were at home. They were taking on a 7 seed Green Bay. If Green Bay had not had the opportunity to even be in the playoffs, I don't know if we're thinking about it this way because Green Bay was 11-7, well, 11-6 this year, and I'll actually pull up a couple of the numbers here because when you look at it across the board, Green Bay as a team showed improvements. They were eighth in overall points, which last year they were 12th. They were fifth in offensive yards. Last year they were 11th. Defensively, they were sixth in points. Last year they were 10th. They were fifth in yards. Last year they were 17th. And all of these metrics, you see that over the course of the regular season, this team did show improvement. I think this Philly team, I think they're ready to go and win a Super Bowl. They are on that echelon, and it was evident yesterday. Green Bay is not at that level. Uh, we'll go back to the opening play where Nixon got blown up. That was a missed penalty, and even told by Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady, how is that not Green Bay football? And you can watch that video over any single angle on Twitter. There are so many questions that arise from that play to open up a game. You have the audacity to take that to replay and not overturn it. You need to fix your system, NFL. That was ridiculous. That started me off with my blood pressure through the roof. I was up out of my chair screaming. It was an ugly scene for me to start the game as I was working at the bar. Luckily, it was just me inside the bar at that time because I may have said some things that would have scared some people away from service at the bar. But that was horrendous. That was one of the most blatantly you can't make that mistake. And over the course of the game, and Green Bay got a couple of calls too, but there were things that were missed. I think even a quote in the fourth quarter after they did not give Emmanuel Wilson any yardage, which he later got the next play.
That was
Even
wild.
the
Yeah.
announcing, they literally said, "That's wild. You are professionals." That team did not do their job on so many levels yesterday. And then when Green Bay went down and that obvious, blatant pass interference was not called on that third Jordan Love interception, be better. This is the playoffs. No, the officials are not the reason that Green Bay lost this game. Green Bay was not ready to play. We know that. But by golly, do your job. You are professionals. You are supposed to be the best in the world at doing this. And they absolutely dropped the ball yesterday. The officiating, and I'm not saying this is the reason that Green Bay lost. Green Bay played terrible. Green Bay did not deserve in any way, shape, or form to win that game. But just be better, NFL. You need to fix your replay system. You need to have your officials ready. You have 17 regular season games, and they blatantly mess things up the way that they did yesterday. Just fix it. Come on, that's ridiculous. I can't stand that kind of stuff. That being said, Matt LaFleur, every single time that this team has played somebody that is perceived to be better than them or at a similar level than them, they're not ready. They don't hold on to the ball. There are multiple times, like these are little things. Even TJ Slayton, yes, the blame goes on him, but we have seen multiple occasions where these players are just not disciplined. And they talk about, oh, Matt LaFleur said that was a big point of emphasis this week. Why are you the one team that has a problem in these big games where your players cannot stay composed? TJ Slayton's throwing guys around. The Keyshawn Nixon penalty I thought was soft, but Keyshawn, you can't do that kind of stuff either. You can't even leave it to a gray area when you're trying to fight in that certain position. There were just so many things. This team was unprepared. Offensively, you went away from the play action when Josh Jacobs gave you so much opportunity. And third downs, you're staying out of the shotgun. You're down by 2 scores on a 3rd and 3 to run right up the middle on a stacked box. The clock management was horrendous. There are so many questions that arise in this game. And I'm not saying that Green Bay needs to fire Matt LaFleur, but Matt LaFleur really needs to take a look into the mirror because there was, yes, the Chicago game was bad. I didn't care that much about it because it was obvious that Green Bay didn't care about that game either. But yesterday, you cannot have those type of mistakes show up in a playoff environment. Those are like simple things that you can't do. Your clock management, your game management, all of those things for Matt LaFleur. So many questions. And I haven't even gone into how Jordan Love didn't look like a solid player yesterday. And I'm not putting I think Love was fine. I think there were a lot of problems, but those are my initial reactions. Those are a lot of the negatives. I did kind of start it off by telling you why I think this team took a couple of steps forward, but Philly was just the better team yesterday. Green Bay played up to a 7 seed. That's what they deserved, and they deserved to get beaten by a team that was much better than them. I expect for Philly to do a little bit here in the playoffs, too. That is a tough team. They have superstars at every single position group. And Green Bay, they weren't prepared, and Philly was just overall better.
Absolutely the better team on all sides of the ball, and they left the door open a little bit. We were down 10-0, almost going into half, and it felt like that Vikings game where it took us a little bit to snap into gear, and that's happened a couple times throughout the year. And I was thinking, wow, how lucky are we that now we can snap into gear only being down 10 because the defense was doing somewhat of a decent job causing a couple
Mhm.
third and outs. We know Jalen Hurts does have some deficiencies throwing the ball, so make him throw the ball. But and we've talked about a handful of these things is marrying the defensive line to the defensive backfield. If you're going to give Jalen Hurts, if you're going to give a Big Ten quarterback 8 seconds to throw the dang ball, someone is going to be open. Someone's going to be Jahan Dotson's going to find 10 feet of space somewhere. Want to get into Jordan Love just a little bit because 0 touchdowns, 3 picks, got to be discussed at $55 million. I've wanted him to blow me away. He hasn't. There's two different Jordan Loves, and I think I said this exact take in about week 6.
Mhm.
There's the Jordan Love who's trying to make a play, and then there's a decisive Jordan Love. He had about 3 or 4 darts yesterday where he stepped into it, drilled it. He knew where he was going with the ball pre-snap, and he put it on a line right between the numbers. And then there's every single other throw that he made where he's jumping, he's falling, he's twisting, he's throwing it high, and he's just trying to do too much. I think the Cowboys game might have been, maybe bad for him in that sense. Maybe the money too early with only 8 good starts might not have been good. I hope that he isn't entitled by this money. I hope he's encouraged and he hits the dang gym and really grinds this off season because that's what he needs. Jordan Love needs a lot of refinement. There's talent there, but Trevor Lawrence also has talent. You got to shine it up a little bit. And if he can start really stepping into these throws, we saw Josh Allen do that. Josh Allen's rookie year, he was bad, and now he might be. He is one of the top 3 quarterbacks on the planet, and he's
Mhm.
leading his team to 13, 14 wins, no problem. So Jordan Love absolutely has to be better. He's got to start stepping into the ball. Tom Brady wasn't Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't Patrick Mahomes running around making crazy plays. Tom Brady was the GOAT because he was decisive, he was smart, and he was
Mhm.
stepping into his throws. That's what Jordan Love needs to start studying and let the explosive plays happen naturally rather than trying to force them.
There is maturity that definitely needs to happen with Jordan Love. You look at his contract, and I know a lot of people are questioning it and saying that he stole all this money from Green Bay. Look at all the quarterbacks that were signed in the offseason. Like Jordan Love still played better than I think every quarterback that got a deal in last offseason, which the offensive market was reset. And you can say, well, Green Bay didn't have to sign him. I feel like they kind of did at that point, and I was content with the deal, and I'm still content with the deal now because we still understand that Jordan Love has that good quarterback in him. We saw a lot of bad Jordan Love this year. We really did. We saw a sophomore slump. But if this is his slump, like this happens very commonly. We watched CJ Stroud play a pretty solid game against LA. Ahead of that, that was not the conversation. This is a pretty like a worse year for CJ Stroud than it was for Jordan Love. And I think they're in similar situations where they were both missing a top wide receiver target. And I think for Love, this should light a fire under him because last year things might have seemed easy when it got to the end of the season, and they were on such a roll that might have seemed like something that can come just naturally with his ability and the guys that they had around him. I hope this lights a little bit fire. I hope he works harder this offseason than he did last offseason because when he got in, he wasn't ready 100%. Even at the start of that Philly game, it wasn't the same guy that you saw at the end of last year. And that was when, and I'll say this too, the receivers at the end of last year were playing miles ahead of what they're playing like now. Like really the separation, dropping passes, and it wasn't that much of an issue into this game, but and that was a big topic of conversation on Twitter as well is where is Green Bay's number one wide receiver? Like nobody has stepped up to the plate. Nobody has been that consistent guy. Yes, Jaden Reed has shown that he has ability, but he's also shown the ability to fumble and drop passes and be inconsistent as well. And I see Sam kind of smirk there. Yes, I think that there could be definitely more of a game plan for a Jaden Reed, but there is something missing in this receiver room. These guys did not progress the way that you thought. And I think that hurts Jordan Love and the overall outlook on him. I'm still very hopeful where this kid is at. I think he's a really hard worker. I think he's a good leader. And you continue to learn things more in this league. I don't think that we're going to see a worse Jordan Love next year than we saw this year. I expect better, and I still have hopes for this team. They won 11 games last year. They won 9. They came in, they had to play a much tougher team in the first round this year. And that's where you can feel like they took a step back. Last year they were able to beat a Dallas team they just played awful. Philly did not play awful. They didn't play great yesterday, but they were just miles ahead of where Green Bay was.
Mhm.
I don't think this is as much of a step back. I think this is a good year for learning for your Matt LaFleur, for your Jordan Love, for Brian Gutekunst on what this roster really needs. And I this is something that's going to come up a little bit later in today's episode, but what's going to happen in the draft? Do you start to look at your edge rushing, at your cornerback room, at your wide receiver room? I think there's a few things. And actually, at this point, I think it's about time that we can go into it. I have a couple of really good questions, I think, for the cheese grater, and I want to put more emphasis on it, especially in this episode. So I'm going to kick off our first cheese grater question for Sam. Sam, looking at this team now and how the roster is, how would you take any method going into the draft? What would yours be? Or off season,
Defense.
you can look at free agency anyway, which I'll also give the point there is a lot more cap room. You don't have to deal with any of the Rodgers money, Bakhtiari money. They have a lot of space going into next season.
I want it all spent on the defense. I think
Okay.
the offensive line is young enough, and you gotta hope you gotta think Jordan Morgan's going to do something. So we should have six playable offense, up to seven playable offensive line. I don't know what freaking knucklehead we tried to throw in yesterday, who ended up with three holding calls in the first like two plays. That was very impressive how he
Yeah, I don't know why
botched.
Telfort wasn't the first guy. I was very surprised that it wasn't Telfort because Telfort always sounded like the sixth guy or the guy to throw in at
Yeah.
guard. I don't know what they were thinking, but yeah, continue please.
I wanted the defense to get assets because I think the pieces are there on offense. I think the offense has all the pieces there, and I'll get to my offensive take on the next question that we get after. But
hmm
I'd like to see us spend resources on defense. I want us to get a veteran dog on the defensive side. Khalil Mack is a free agent. If he is going to bring that for a year and just bring some freaking oomph to us, let's bring him in. Let's make that splash play back there. Draft a linebacker, draft an edge rusher. Van Ness, he's a bum. He's done. Cut him.
Yep.
Lucas Van Ness was a project. Get him out of here. I don't know who called him Hercules. I think we got the Walmart Hercules Percules. He's taking a sneeze. I don't know what Lucas Van Ness is
You
doing
you
out there. He
got
looks
the
small.
window shopping Hercules is what you
Yeah.
got. You got the mannequin, the guy that looks the part but doesn't actually move.
He doesn't even look the part. He looks small and weak compared to Philly's offensive line. And this is the guy they were calling Hercules. It's he's just not an NFL player. So I want to see us really push on the defensive side because I think the pieces are there on the offensive side. I'm looking for one splash defensive player and then give a
hmm
bunch of guys a shot. Find your next Evan Williams. Really working at Bullard. Find some fast energy back on the defensive side.
You need that edge rusher. Khalil Mack is an interesting case. He kind of said yesterday, the quote was, he doesn't want to make any rash decisions, but he's not sure if he wants to play football next year. If he does, absolutely. That guy had a monster game in that playoff game. LA played really bad, but Khalil Mack still had Khalil Mack there. Like if you can get
Mm.
that kind of tenacious mentality and physicality in a player to go in and teach these young guys how to actually get to the quarterback, that would be a definite positive. I also think that cornerback, we said this all year, you really have to bring in a guy. I think a veteran would be solid as well, even if it's just some mid-level free agent corner to bring into this room. You need a lot more depth than you have right now. Carrington Valentine, he stepped in and he improved over the course of this year. He's not a number one. I don't think he's a number two. I
He
think he
got
could be a number
rocked.
three.
He had a shot to tackle Goddard, and he got rocked. That Goddard play. If he can't stand up, if
Yeah,
he can't tackle a tight end, then he's got a lot of work to do. He had a chance to
right.
tackle.
I
He just
mean,
got
Goddard
babied.
had Goddard had
Babied.
definitely the advantage position wise as well. Like he just had Carrington on the outside. I don't know. He's probably got 80 pounds on Carrington Valentine. Like I don't know how much of a shot he had other than diving for the ankles. But Valentine, he's not your number one or your number two. Jair, we already talked about it. I don't know if he's going to suit up as a Packer again. That whole situation is interesting. Eric Stokes ended up playing actually pretty solid towards the end of the season. We didn't see him rarely at all yesterday. I don't know what the snap count was. I don't remember seeing him on television at all. Uh, and Keyshawn Nixon is not a good cornerback, although he did get an all-pro vote, ironically, at slot corner. I don't know if you knew that. He was one of the 5 Packers that got an all-pro vote, and Josh Jacobs did not get an all-pro vote, just to just to throw that out there.
Good Lord.
But yeah, there's a lot of talent that needs to step up in the cornerback room. So I think you put an emphasis there. I think you're good at safety. I think you're really good at safety. I wouldn't worry. I'm really excited for Edgerrin Cooper, what you can bring into the linebacker room. I saw some rumors that New England might want Quay Walker, which if they do,
Cool.
go for it. But I do think drafting another linebacker would also be solid to take a step up from a Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, and Eric Wilson. Like, just throw another guy into that room. I think the offensive line, like you said, is young. They're solid. Running back, you have no worries at all. You have Marshawn Lloyd coming in next year. I have a lot of high hopes for him, especially be that change-up running back from Jacobs. And Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks did great. Like, don't get me wrong. They had incredible backup running back seasons, but Marshawn Lloyd is a third-round draft pick that a lot of people regarded as the most talented running back in the draft last year. So there are a lot of high hopes. He had bad luck this year. I think at receiver, you have to draft somebody as well, even a little bit more of a project. You don't know how long you're going to be missing Christian Watson. I didn't look at the injury report today. I should have, but the way that things looked like, Jaden Reed might have broke his collarbone. Romeo Dobbs is now obviously dealing with multiple concussions, and that could be something that pops up. You need a little bit more depth, and you need some guys to step up. Tight end, you're good. You got your 2 guys. I think you focus on receiver, defensive line, linebacker, and corner. I think those are the groups you look at in the draft. Wide receiver, I think you can look at a T. Higgins. I would not be opposed to that. I know you brought it up a little bit earlier. You asked me about Tyreek Hill, and my answer to that once again is there's no way a Tyreek Hill personality would live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Like, that's just those two things don't mix and match. That would be oil and water. But yeah, those are my thoughts going into the draft.
Let's touch on the receiver room because we got very different opinions on that.
Okay, I like it. Yeah.
Um, I have the complete opposite stance as you, Cody. We need to get rid of somebody. Given there was a couple of injuries yesterday, we had
Yeah.
8 guys that had 3 targets or more. How can you expect Tucker Kraft to get in a rhythm? How can you expect Josh Jacobs to get
Mhm.
his 4 or 5 catches a game? How can you expect Jaden Reed? Jaden Reed showed yesterday that he has the attitude that we're looking for. He wants to be the number one. And damn it, let's give him a shot. Let's give him 100 targets in a year. He had 55 targets this year. That's not okay. We're cursed by having too many right now. We got to trim some off. Get Tucker Kraft his 10 targets. Get Romeo Dobbs his 5. We don't need we on the other end of the spectrum of Aaron Rodgers targeting Devontae Adams 17 times, Aaron Jones 13, and then Musgraves once. We're on the other end of the spectrum from that. We have too many guys getting 3 targets right now. We got to trim some off the top. We got to get rid of either Dobbs, Watson, or Reed because between Dobbs, Watson, Reed, Kraft, Jacobs, I think it's providing too much indecision, especially for a young quarterback like Jordan Love. I want him to find his number one receiver, have his tight end available, and his running back as a check down on every single play. We should not have, there's too much going on for Jordan Love right now. So one of these guys just needs to decide you're the number one. I would love and any sort of the combination between the two of them. If it's Watson over the top and Reed run a lot of little switch routes, that's fine. Get rid of Dobbs. Something has to happen. We got to trim something out of the receiver room. What's your take on that?
I think that guys have been trimmed this season anyway. Like, it feels like most games. I would look at it, but more games than not, I think you're missing a Romeo Dobbs or a Christian Watson. Like, I feel like that was the case this year, and you still didn't see the overall success. I'm looking at the receiver numbers this year now, and a little bit shocking when you look at it. But Jaden Reed, he had 55 catches, he had 75
Catches.
targets. Yes, you do expect more out of that. He also rushed the ball 20 times. not the production you were expecting after especially week one out of Jaden Reed. I don't know what the case was. I don't know how open he was getting. I haven't looked into any of the analytics, but can you guess the leader in targets in the passing game for the Green Bay Packers this year? This is a surprise to me.
Is it Reed with 70?
No.
I can't imagine somebody had much more than that.
Jaden Reed had
Is it
75. The other player had one more. He had 76.
was it Watson?
Nope.
Uh,
Watson actually, he was targeted only 53 times.
Jacobs?
Nope. Jacobs
Kraft?
was.
No, clearly I don't know because who are we don't have any. There's no decisiveness in this offense.
It's funny.
Thank you
It's
for making
funny.
my point. We don't have a guy that we could just target and simplify things. Who is
It's
it?
Dontavian Wicks.
Wow.
Dontavian Wicks had 76 targets. He had 39 catches for 415 yards.
Oh my goodness.
And I think this goes to what I had going. I had a lot of high hopes for Dontavian Wicks going into this season. He's a guy that gets open. I think even on the whatever Darius Slay interception it was, I think a better throw, Wicks would have been there. Like that, I think he had just enough separation. You just needed a 10 out of a 10 throw, and you had a 7 out of 10 throw. And Darius Slay went up and made a big play. That's what he does. But I think I don't. I would like to go and look at the analytics and the separation percentage because a lot of the guys that I hear that go in and they actually study the tape, like they go back and they watch every single play over and over and over again. It sounded like Jaden Reed was struggling to get open at times. That he
Well,
really was.
I think some of that is attitude. I mean, you've heard quarterbacks on the broadcast talk about it, and Brady's talked about it a handful of times throughout the year. You got to find your guys early. These receivers have, I mean, these are athletes. They have attitudes. You know, if you're going to get them a couple balls on that first drive, now they're going to start running every route like it matters because they think a ball's coming to them. If they're not getting targets, if they're only getting 3, 4 targets a game, why are they going to push every single route? Because they don't think the ball's coming to them. That's the benefit of having
Yeah.
someone be your dominant guy, that attitude. And Jaden Reed showed that attitude that he wants this smoke. He wants that contact. Maybe not today with a broken collarbone, but
Yeah.
I think keeping your guys hot and interested in the game goes a long way as far as route separation, just general vibes.
I I think bringing another guy. There's talent. We know that there's talent in this room. It's just the progression just wasn't there. Why did they look better last year, Sam? They had the exact same number of guys. They were all the same guys.
So you believe in Dontavian Wicks, but you want to add another
I
guy to the
don't
locker room?
believe in
You want
Dontavian
him?
Wicks after
You
this
want
year.
your
I
like
think he could.
seventh?
Every single
Like
one of these guys could. They just haven't. No one has stepped up. That's the separation between somebody
mhm.
has to get open every play. Like that there has to be a guy who just does a little bit better than everybody else. Like,
Mhm.
yes, you have to cut guys out, but you cut guys out by someone else taking your spot, by somebody else playing better than you, by somebody showing more production, having a better open rate, catch percentage. Every single one of these receivers had drop problems this year. And you can say that it's lack of repetition or whatnot. These guys practice too. It is the NFL. You drop a ball, no, catch the ball. And every single one of those receivers that we talked about, they had those problems. And Jordan Love didn't have a great year either. He didn't have a great game yesterday. There's some to be desired there as well. It was just evident that you can say you can trim things off, but over the course of yesterday's game and over the course of the season, guys were getting hurt too. Like they had guys get taken. I don't think cutting guys is going to make other guys better. I think
I
it is
think
a game plan or somebody showing up more than somebody else.
I just want to see Tucker Kraft be 1,000 yard receiver. I want to see him be
Yeah.
more involved. And I think adding more to the receiver room is going to take away from him. So I don't care what the receiver room looks like. I just want to make sure that Tucker Kraft is getting 7 targets a game because I think we got a freaking weapon on our hands right there.
I agree. I really think so as well. And I think a lot of that is going to go on LaFleur and how he curates his game plan. And I really do think that Josh Jacobs, being as good as he was this year, really took a lot of targets and offensive passing repetition from those guys away as well, which is a good That's a good thing to have. You just need to have a receiver that's going to be there that you can rely on. And nobody stepped up and was that reliable guy, regardless of how many targets that he got. Let's keep moving into the cheese grater here. What do you got for me, Sam? I know you're cooking up something nice.
Is LaFleur on the hot seat? What would it take for him to be on the hot seat if he's not?
It would take losing seasons, I think.
Two of
I
them. Packers go 7-9 next year. He still has a 7-10. He still has a job.
that would be definitely a very hot seat. If they go 7-10 next year with the roster and you retain guys, and I think that there's a chance that you could get one or two more studs coming. The way that it sounded in that locker room, the way Josh Jacobs was talking, he said he's going to try to get his boys there. You kind of
Okay.
heard some rumors. I watched Devontae Adams kind of talk a little bit. He's like, "Yeah, Green Bay. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed going back." Like, and Josh Jacobs, he played with the Max Crosby, who has been in trade rumors as well. Like, there's opportunity for them to bring other guys in, and with the cap space and with Brian Gutekunst, like, yes, we can crap on him for the first round draft pick. Brian Gutekunst had a home run draft from top through bottom last year. If you get another draft class like that and you bring in a couple of guys in free agency or trading, this roster will be Super Bowl ready. If they go under 500, Matt LaFleur is fired at the end of next year because that roster is going to be set. There's no reason that they should be worse, in
We
my
talked about that a couple
biased
times. It
opinion.
feels like the talent is there, but the attitude isn't. And I think that's what LaFleur, what you're looking for in a head coach. Because if the talent is there, how do we get over the top?
Yeah, there was a lack of preparation in big games, and that was evident. And LaFleur is going to have to go in and he's going to have to fix a lot of that. Like I have so much faith in Matt LaFleur. He has won a lot of football games since he's gotten into Green Bay. He was able to make Malik Willis look like a competent starting quarterback when everybody else had given up on him. Like that, his game plan when it's at its best is one of the best in all of the NFL. And I can go and confidently say that. But there were just some things that arose towards the end of the season when it came to clock management and game management and play calling that was just poor. Like play calling had not been poor in my opinion with Matt LaFleur previously, but that became a big question towards the end of the year and not calling timeout or knowing when to call a timeout or having your guys go out of bounds when they're supposed to or try to hurry up when they're supposed to. There was just a lack of the finer things this year. So that seat it would definitely get warm, maybe a little bit too hot if they went 7-10. Here's a good one to bounce off of that. Is a Super Bowl possible with the Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love quarterback coach combination?
Yes, and
Okay.
that's why this season has been, tumultuous because we see the
Hmm.
potential. We see Matt LaFleur, he won, 13 games first couple seasons in a row. We
Hmm.
see the opportunity that Jordan Love can provide in offense, the explosive plays. And that's why heading into this season, Packers weren't a Super Bowl favorite by any means, but you weren't getting called crazy if you had the Packers in the Super Bowl coming into
Yeah.
this year,
Hmm.
especially coming off of the momentum that we had from last year. I think the Matt LaFleur Jordan Love combination can win a Super Bowl. I'm curious if it needs to be Matt LaFleur as the offensive coordinator and somebody else as the head coach.
I I like where your head's at because there is just those. Yeah, kind of what I was saying. Like when that game plan's right, that game plan's there. He can do that as a coordinator as well. But I also do want to say this. I think that one of the biggest positives that you got out of yesterday is you are confident and you know that Jeff Halfley was the right guy to hire.
Yeah.
He had that scheme going all year. Yes, sometimes the players didn't execute. So he did have the weird play against Chicago, but you know that Jeff Halfley's the guy you want running the defense in Green Bay. He turned it around. You have to be happy about that. They solved that problem. Thank goodness. I do want to bring it up very quickly, though. Special teams, Rich Bisaccia needs to be fired, I think, a couple of hours ago. Oh my gosh, he's getting paid way too much to do absolutely nothing and actually hurt this team. Got brought in as supposedly one of the best special team coaches of all time. The special teams unit has been just embarrassing so far in his, I think, 3-year tenure now in Green Bay. He needs to be gone.
Mhm.
Bye. I'm sorry. I've been disgusted with it. He could help with clock management as well as the assistant head coach or the finer things that we've talked about with LaFleur. Get somebody else in there that just does their job correctly. I'm sorry. They just, the execution has been poor on that side. Just a little quick note there. But
Couldn't agree more.
my, my final cheese grater question. Can you play the blame game? I'll give you three people or concepts or whatever. Play the blame game for the 2024 Packers.
2024 Packers. Hey, Jordan Love, you get paid the
Mhm.
money, and that's number one. That's the quarterback. He carries the load. If he were to win it all, he would be getting the praise, and if he's going to lose, he gets the criticism too. So that's just the role of the quarterback. I'm giving Jordan Love one. I'm giving I think Jair makes such a difference on this team, but you can't blame him just on the injury type of
You can
stuff. And
blame
you
his
hate to.
injury.
Yeah, okay, we'll give Jair's injury one because 100%. We were talking about the D
Mhm.
back room this whole season. If we had a Jair and a McKinney back there for every single game,
Oh
we're
yeah.
not the seventh seed. We're playing at home in the first
Hmm.
game of the playoffs. That's for dang sure.
So you're
Um,
saying they win the division then?
okay. No. I would love to see Tampa in the first round instead of
100%. Yes. Oh
without a
my
doubt.
goodness. Yes.
So I don't know. I think Jordan Love, Jair's injury, and then I think Matt LaFleur play calling. I mean, I'm sorry, 1-5 in the division. That's got to be the three heads of the horses right there. I think Love can be a good quarterback. Jair can be a good, obviously great coverage corner, and LaFleur does have a huge bag of play calling, and that's why they're getting the blame is because they should have been. The expectations were there for those three guys to succeed.
So overall, just execution. And that's what it was for your LaFleur and Love. And we've seen them execute. We've seen them execute at a very high level. And they were just missing that. There was no point in this season where I felt like Green Bay was running on all engines. They just weren't. There was not a single point. And which is why this season in hindsight was maybe one of the most boring Green Bay seasons I can remember. Like just
Sure.
there just wasn't a whole lot that went on. Like the highest hopes that we had going into the playoffs was maybe they could upset Philly because why not? Because we just had that idea in us, and I don't know, it was exciting going into the game, but that that was the most exciting part of this season was just yeah maybe they could beat Philly in the first round because in all of their divisional games just poor. They should have lost every single one of those division games, and you just can't do that as a head coach.
It's execution, exactly what you said. You look at what I mean. We've said it all season long. What the Lions are doing, you could have everybody injured, but you go execute, make your plays, get your 5 yards, stay out of the sticks, and don't turn it over. And with a lot more talent, you could have a very high ceiling in this league. So a big project for the Packers is to understand that they are not on that level yet, but they can get to that level. And it's execution. It's just walking up two steps and putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, I think so. You got any last cheese grater questions for me? Or
You touched on it. I was going to ask you what the biggest positive is because we're heading into the offseason. We can't be too negative out here. I do think the Packers are still the youngest team in the league, and we're not going to be going away anytime soon.
yeah, I think the positives I'm taking, you have a defensive coordinator. I
Yeah.
think you have Edgerrin Cooper, who I think could be an absolute superstar in this league. Same goes for Tucker Kraft. You have your guys there. You have a lot of cap space going into next year, and they're still the Green Bay Packers, man. They made the playoffs. Like, not saying that you can be content just making the playoffs, but you have made the playoffs in 2 out of the 2 years that you've started with Jordan Love since the Aaron Rodgers era. I think you just have to be excited for the future at this point as a Packer fan. Like you saw they got a Josh Jacobs this year, they got McKinney, and maybe those boys could bring some of their old really solid teammates with them. Like I'm excited for it. We kind of just knew that this Green Bay team wasn't built for it, and we got to watch that yesterday unfold. And now we get to watch the rest of the NFL without any anxiety following any of it. So a stress-free playoffs. Any final thoughts for the people?
Bucks and six, baby. It's Buck season now.
All right, let's